Hey y'all, this is Allie Spears, your host of the Ag Chicks podcast, where I cultivate connections with the women who are helping feed the world. Today's guest is Sarah Sprayberry. She was born and raised in the hills of Boerne, where she began bleeding maroon the second she came out of the womb. To say that her parents are diehard Aggies would be an understatement, so naturally, she became academically inbred by receiving her bachelor's, master's, and is now pursuing her PhD at Texas A&M University. In her master's, she developed an E.coli pig model for human environmental enteropathy, a nutritional disease seen in youth in third world countries, while also managing the Texas A&M swine farm, where she was one of the first female operators. She has always had a passion for agriculture as she grew up raising pigs in 4-H, was involved in FFA, and competed at horse shows. Through her teaching at Blinn College and working for Texas 4-H, she solidified her desire to connect youth with the farmers that feed them. She especially loves developing culturally responsive programs for minoritized youth that can feel left out or overlooked. Please join me in introducing and welcoming Sarah to the podcast. Is this your first podcast episode? Or
No.
being on a podcast? I love taking people's podcast virginity. I feel so honored.
Pop that cherry, man.
Right? Exactly. Oh, man. Well, today I'm sitting down with the one and only Sarah Sprayberry, and we are going to be chatting about things in agriculture, things in ag research, all of the ways that we intersect, and then also just kind of what you've got going on. So, very excited to have you on. Thank you for joining me. But Sarah, let's kind of start from the beginning. Little Sarah, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Boerne, Texas, so just north of San Antonio in the beautiful hill country. Born and raised there. My parents have been there for 35 years, so that's pretty much my foundation.
Yeah, okay. And then you grew up involved in agriculture to what extent? Like 4-H, FFA?
Oh yeah, all of it. So I was in 4-H. I showed hogs, and then of course I think every girl goes through the transition of like I was wanting to be a veterinarian, so I did all the vet tech stuff in 4-H. I shadowed veterinarians, and then I soon learned I was like, vet not. Yeah, that's gonna be a hard no for me. And then FFA, I did like horse judging, and I also did plant judging. I was absolutely terrible at that. Don't ever ask me to identify any sort of plant unless it's like a bluebonnet. Then I got that one down pat. But other than that, no. And don't ask me to grow them either, because I'll kill them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had a garden at one point, didn't pan out too well, and I'm like having the garden feels again, where like I want one, but I'm like, didn't work out the first time. Maybe I should just not.
Well, it's funny because I work for a junior master gardener, and so they my boss gave me a tomato plant, and she's like, you can do this. I was like, you could give me a hog and I'll definitely grow that, and we can slaughter it, have some bacon. But my tomato plant is low-key dying right now.
Yeah.
But I did get some tomatoes off of it, so that's good.
Okay, well that's nice. You got at least a little bit of a harvest.
Complete failure. Yeah.
Good. So you did 4-H FFA, then you came to Texas A&M, which I know you often refer to yourself as an inbred, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But why A&M? Was there like a certain reason, or was that just like always, yeah, I'm gonna go to A&M?
No, actually. So my parents were Aggies, and so bleeding maroon since day one. My mobile over my bed was the Aggie Warham. So it's like, you will go to A&M. But I was bound and determined like senior year. I was like, I'm not going. And so I applied to all schools out of state, Kentucky, Ohio State, Auburn. I got into all of those. And then kind of in like January, February, my senior year was down to Auburn and A&M, and A&M just felt right.
Yeah.
That maroon blood came back.
Right. And I can I'm right there with you on that one. I also feel like obviously I'm from California, but 5 seconds on campus, I was like, yeah, this is where I'm going. And that's nothing else really could compare at that point. So.
I know.
And it still hasn't, because here we are, still
You know,
here.
God, we can't get out.
We can't leave.
Never.
Right? Okay, so undergrad, you did your undergrad in animal science, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then you got your master's in animal science.
Animal science, yep.
Yeah, okay. And then you started your PhD elsewhere.
I did.
And then came back here.
I did.
Okay, so walk us through that a little bit. And like, okay, also, so Sarah and I are in grad school together, for those of you who are like, how does she know so much about her educational journey? But so we are in grad school together in the Department of Agricultural Leadership, Education, and Communications, the world's longest title ever.
I know.
But that's where we met and kind of where we connected, and we have a lot of similarities in kind of our interests and passions too. So that's why I know so much about Sarah to this point.
Talk me.
Right, exactly. I don't know all of my guests' educational history this much. But so you did undergrad and master's and everything in animal science, and you had like a very serious master's project. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of like where your interest in research came from.
Where I went. Yeah. So obviously pigs are my thing, which people find very odd because I know they smell awful, but they're just my people. And so master's was swine nutrition. My project was actually using pigs as like a human model for environmental enteropathy, which is also a mouthful. But in layman's terms, it's a disease that's found in like Africa, third world countries, developing countries, and it stunts the little villi, so the little finger-like things that we got in our small intestine, so they can't absorb nutrients, they become malnourished, and then it actually normally ends up in death, which is really tragic. And so what we're trying to do with pigs is simulate environmental enteropathy and actually come up with kind of a cure that we could eventually take over and like work with food programs and World Health and all of those guys to kind of help with what was happening in developing countries. So that being said, that took me into, I love nutrition. I've always loved nutrition on the livestock side and human side. And so I was like, maybe I want to do human nutrition. And so that's where I went to Texas Tech, which is, you know, a big no-no in the Aggie world. And I started my nutrition PhD. And what I was going to do there was kind of similar things, but I was going to work with farmers in Africa on how they can better their livestock nutrition and see how that helps their villages nutrition in terms of everybody who is 5 and under. So kind of the same lines on the environmental enteropathy. But a series of unfortunate events is what I call it happened in Texas Tech, and everything just kind of went south. And it was kind of like, yeah, I think God was kind of like, this ain't it. So I waltzed myself back to the place that I know oh so well, and that would be Aggie land. And that is where we are now.
And that's where we are now. So, yes.
Yes.
And for you, like, was obviously you're at your PhD stage now, right? And you are kind of in this hopeful final stretch here. But was research like ever on your radar, or like a world in academia? Was that something you always knew you wanted to do, or how did that kind of like come about?
Always. I don't know why. I wish I could tell myself I don't need to be in academia because I have a love-hate relationship for it, you know? I mean, you know, the struggles of academia that we have, especially in the ag world. I've had issues being a female and, you know, people not respecting my decisions and things like that, especially in the animal science world. It was a struggle. But in undergrad, Dr. Coverdale, I don't know if you had her, but
but I know who she is.
Yes, she was equine nutrition, and she kind of like sparked everything in me. And that's really where I decided that academia was going to be it. And I did a research project with her in undergrad, and I was like, this is it. And so that's kind of how I went into my master's, and then knew that I wanted to have a PhD and just continue to be a student for life.
Right. A lifelong learner.
That is what we call it, isn't it, Allie? A lifelong learner. That's what our department loves to say. I'm like,
yes. We are lifelong learners, and which I mean is a good thing, right? I mean, you should always be curious and learning.
But the way they put it, I'm like, no. I don't want to learn about ag philosophy. I'm sorry.
Right. And yeah, so and for those of you who are like, okay, what even is like a PhD in agricultural leadership education and communications? Fantastic question. So I think so for myself, obviously I'm taking more of the communications route,
Yes.
and you are kind of taking all of the routes.
That is such a good way to put it. She's like the lost child. I'm really not, but I am. Yeah. Somebody asked me that other day. They're like, what section do you fit in? And I'm like, why do I have to put myself in a box? I
Right.
will say that I'm not tied to the leadership.
Yeah,
And
and that's kind of how I feel too. I feel like my stuff can kind of fit into education and
right,
communication, but
exactly.
leadership, yeah, there's a little bit, but it's kind of
Yeah,
no.
it's not there. Because
Yeah.
extension education is really probably where, if I had to put myself in a box, that's where I would put myself.
Yeah. And so let's talk about your dissertation a little bit. And let's talk about too, I think people they hear the word dissertation and they don't really know what that means. So maybe let's like unpack that a little. I don't even know what it means.
I was about to say, you sure you want to ask me that? Because I'm not sure that I can unpack that well. It's that. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it feels like. But no, it's good.
So for you, for your topic and your research right now,
Yes.
what are you working on?
We're in the thick of it. So I am working on culturally responsive programming for Hispanic youth that ties agricultural literacy and nutrition education.
Okay. Yes.
It's a lot of
Yes.
words.
It's a lot of words, but that's, I think sometimes, so I obviously have like not had a ton of research focused guests, but I thought that this would be a really unique conversation because
Yeah.
you understand obviously the research side of it, but then also like the implications of the industry side, which
Yes.
I think those lines get blurred a lot, and people in the industry are like, I don't understand why the research impact me. Or
Mhm.
on the research side, people are so research focused that they don't understand the real world implications. So
They live in
for
their ivory
you,
towers.
right? And so
Mhm.
for you and like your project and your focus, what does it mean from an industry standpoint?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. For me personally, I think about how extension education, we're supposed to serve everybody, right? Especially in Texas, like we need to serve Texans. And so if we look at the Texan population, we see that Caucasians are actually in the minority, and
Mm-hmm.
our Hispanic and Latino counterparts are actually the majority, but we are not doing, I personally think, enough to be serving them. I mean, you look at Texas 4-H, and I've been doing a content analysis with Dr. Dooley, which is, basically just looking at words, figures, pictures. And so I look at the 4-H website, there's two things that are really offered in Spanish forms, but like there's not programs that are really tied to Spanish. And so for me, I'm like, I think we need to see how, if we actually tailor things to the people that we're serving, how it actually improves their understanding and their connection to ag. Especially as we go from rural to urban, like we need to be targeting those kids so they know that their food doesn't come from a box
Right.
or that it comes from HEB, right? I mean, a lot of kids are just not tied to that. And I think part of the reason why is because we're not targeting them and actually helping tailor to what they understand. And it's not necessarily, it has to be like, oh, you do Hispanic, it has to be in Spanish. It's also doing like they're middle schoolers. So culturally making it middle school appropriate. So like incorporating TikTok, incorporating things like that that they understand and that they appreciate, incorporating their favorite pop stars, things like that. And how and my office went dark.
You need to move around a little bit.
That's kind of a story of my life. It's not gonna do
The
it.
old yeah.
Motion sensors,
Motion
and
sensor
we got to
lights.
save the energy, but we
Right.
can have Kyle Field on at all times.
That Jumbotron is ready to go at all
Like
times.
it is on 24/7. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. But no, okay, so back to kind of what you just said. I think
Yeah.
that that is an important thing for everyone to understand from a standpoint of
Yes.
like even relating to kind of my interests and stuff in terms of like consumers and
Yeah,
looking at how we connect with them and better communicate with them. Like
exactly.
we have to understand them in order to be able to do that. And so your focus is interesting because of the just demographic that you're choosing to focus on. But then the fact, again, too, right, that's the majority, and Caucasians are now the minority here, which is kind of crazy to think about, but also meaning that we need to switch the way we approach things when we're talking about ag literacy and food and all of that, nutrition, all the aspects.
Yes.
And
Because
so,
I mean, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you look at nutrition wise, I've taken a lot of public health classes in my PhD, and just there's called social determinants of health. And it kind of shows how we have different health or access to health. And actually, 1 in 4 Hispanic children are considered obese. And a lot of people want to put it on, well, oh, it's because of what they eat and everything. Actually, no, it's because we push them to become culturalized, and they then are consumed into the American diet and the American way of living. And that, like, marketing gets targeted towards them on like sodas and things like that. And so, no, it's not really what a lot of people think. And so that's another reason why I'm wanting to do that nutrition aspect of it, is trying to help, again, just serve that population better than what we're doing now.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And it will be interesting to see kind of what you find through that too.
Hope I find something.
Something that is so, and you are doing a quantitative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so for individuals who are like, what the heck does quantitative mean? Quantitative is when you typically are using statistics of some sort to kind of explain your findings. Qualitative is really more not the what, but the why. So typically not using numbers at all, but more of like statements and pictures, words to kind of describe what's happening.
The feelings.
Feelings, which is, and so there's differences obviously, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around this in terms of kind of your focus, which I think will be interesting to see. So are you using surveys, or how are you? Okay.
Yeah, so I have the curriculum, and it's the ag literacy from Matrix that Utah State has done. And so I just have the basic one that they have on their website, but then I've taken it and I've tailored it. And so I'm going to have treatment 1 and treatment 2. And then I'm just going into middle schools this summer, like with summer school, ACE programs, things like that. And I'm just going to give them a pre-survey and then a post-survey, and that will be it after they have the 3 lessons.
Nice. Very cool.
It is nice.
What are you thinking you're going to find?
I really hope that it shows that with that culturally tailoring, that it does help them understand, like, ag literacy goes up as well as your nutrition education. So what we're looking as nutrition education is like attitudes and behaviors. So exposing them to how milk goes from cow to store, does that actually increase their dairy consumption or want them to? Because part of the tailoring is also they get recipes to take home, and they get little activities to do with their family. So trying to incorporate that family aspect of it for them to discuss like what they eat, their nutrition, how they could maybe make their nutrition better, and kind of things like that they can do together.
Very cool. Very cool. And so all of this too, obviously, is ag literacy. And I know that's something we connect on. So why did you choose to go the ag literacy route? Just because there are so many different things you could have done with this, right?
There really are. Ag literacy, I think it's kind of funny. Ag literacy really didn't come into of course, I've always been passionate about agriculture and like talking about agriculture, but ag literacy, that specific component, really didn't come to me until I started teaching at Blinn and just kind of seeing how much misconceptions that our kids have today and just youth in general. And then the more that I interacted in extension education and like going to the Houston Livestock Show and helping out with the kiddos who had like booths there, and just seeing that like the general population truly just doesn't get it. And if you can sit there and have a intelligent, just general conversation with them, not talking down to them, just being like one-on-one, be like, why do you not want to eat meat? Or like, why are you concerned? And then they voice their concerns, and then you kind of talk through it. That was really impactful for me. And I was like, this is what we need to be doing. Because I think sometimes And I get it. Like for agriculture, I think we go on the defense a little too much and we're not on the offense. And I really think we need to focus more on being the offense and just being as transparent as possible.
If you're looking to make realistic life changes and wanting someone to help you with learning and maintaining consistency, Megan is your gal. Megan doesn't believe health and fitness should be a one-size-fits-all approach, and therefore is dedicated to creating a plan that is best fit for your goals and needs. Visit megannicolefitness.com today to kickstart your health journey. Every workout plan is custom written to meet your goals, schedule, gym, or at-home workout needs, and comes with weekly check-ins and email support. Additionally, she also has limited spots available for FaceTime training sessions.
And trying to be like, you know what, this is how milk is done, and this is why we have antibiotics, and this is why we do this. Just so that people know, and then they can make their decision. Like, I don't care. If you want to be vegan after that, more power to you. But I just want you to not be getting your information from Kim Kardashian. I don't want you to get it from somebody who understands ag, has the true education, is the farmer, has the boots on the ground, is interacting with those animals. I want that information coming from them, not from some influencer that you saw on TikTok or Instagram, and that's how you make your decision about our industry.
Right. I could not agree more. I have said time and time and time again that, ag has a beautiful story. We just don't do a great job of telling it. But I think your point about offense, defense is really important because we get defensive when we are criticized or people have misconceptions. It's kind of like, well, I think the general thought there is, well, you should just know. But if we aren't providing that information in a way that they can absorb it and understand it, how can we expect them to know that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the whole ag literacy thing is super important, just from, so many different levels, economic impacts even.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And to start it at the youth level, I think is extremely important. Because then they become educated consumers, and then hopefully the cycle starts with a more educated population when they are at the point of having families.
Yes. And it impacts their nutrition as well. So that's why I have that all tied.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and I think having the whole idea of having the information to make decisions based off of facts and not fear is
exactly
extremely important.
Yeah. Yes.
And you mentioned social media, and I know you dabble in the social media world as well.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that and kind of how that came about and all the things you're doing in that world.
Yeah. So for Texas 4-H, when I worked for Texas Youth Livestock and Agriculture, I was their social media coordinator for 3 years. And I think I saw just the comments that we would get, because like our platform was pretty big, obviously. I mean, it's Texas 4-H. Right. The comments that I would get on Instagram and like through Snapchat and things like that, I was like, whoa. Okay. So I was like, we got some things that like we need to address. And like they were always, not always, but a lot of them were very aggressive and very like, that is not true. I'm not sure where you're getting this from. And so when I stepped away from that, I was like, I kind of want to do my own gig and kind of things that I've heard people who are like confusing things about ag. I was like, I just want to address those. And so I do. TikTok is definitely more of my platform that I thrive on. That's mostly because I have a side note, a passion for shaking my booty. I'm just gonna be real with you. So yeah, I get to add the little dancing, and then with my dancing, I just do ag facts and I just talk about different misconceptions, and that seems to do pretty well. I have people who will message me and be like, tell me about pasture raised pork. And I was like, I'd love to. And like we just had a general conversation about it, and like, wow, thank you for like being the first person to just talk to me like a human and not be aggressive and be like, give me to eat like commercial rate and all this. Like, no, again, it's your choice at the end of the day. I just want you to understand the facts, and that's kind of what I want to do via my platform, is just make it fun and not so like intimidating and aggressive, and just kind of put it out there and let people have conversations.
Yeah, no, I think that's the best approach, and I think we need to be doing that more.
Yes.
And social media is just such a strange world in its own.
That is, yeah, it's a hard world.
Yeah.
And like, because you have it where, I mean, especially for me being youth development, you have so many studies showing the negative sides of social media and like how that really impacts our youth mental health and all of that, which I get. I just wish kind of what I did in 4-H was I would kind of showed the kids, I was like, this is how we can do it in a positive way. Like, just be open. Like, we don't have to have like look like Instagram models all the time. Like, you can just be you.
Right.
And that's really okay to be transparent and be genuine. People would rather have that than the buffered and photoshopped, all of those things. And so it's kind of a hard one to deal with, especially in the younger world.
Yeah, and I think as you know, Texas livestock and agriculture and the ambassador programs and all that
Yes.
have been doing a really good job at really, trying to develop advocates for the industry. Sure. And I know from a personal level, I'm working with the poultry ambassador program quite a bit, but it's a challenging world to try to train them in the world of social media, because honestly, they probably know it better than we do.
Right.
But making sure the way that they're using their messaging and their platforms in an appropriate and constructive way is, I think, where it gets a little bit challenging.
Difficult. Yes. And one of the most difficult things I found when kind of training them was teaching them to not share or reshare like PETA stuff.
Yeah.
Or somebody said something negative about the industry and then they would share it and then write a comment about it. Right. I was like, here's the deal. I understand where you're coming from, but what are people going to see when you share that? They're going to see the PETA thing, or they're going to see that negative comment
spreading that.
Exactly. Like, those people don't care who shares it, as long as it gets shared. And yes. And so kind of again, that's kind of like the offense versus defense thing. So I would tell them, like, if you see a post about like how slaughter is inhumane, then make a post about all of the ag facts that you know and share that instead. And so that's kind of trying to help them reprogram. Because I mean, I catch myself too. Like, I see something like, this pisses me off, and like
triggered.
I'm like, no. But then I always have to like catch myself and be like, you're just feeding into their fire, and you are actually helping them promote what they want to promote, and it's not doing any good. So
yeah. 100%. So with all of the things you have going on, what is kind of your end goal when you finish this, when you are Dr. Sprayberry?
Oh my gosh, that sounds nice.
Right? I can see it. I can see it at the end.
Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel looks so dim.
Dim and getting further and further away.
It does. Like, you would think it would get better at this point, but no. I want to go into academia. I wrestle with myself every day about it, but I think that's truly where my passion lies, because I love teaching and I love research and I love extension. And so my way, or how I see best fit to have the beautiful triangle of our land-grant universities, is to go be at one. Yeah. That being said, that doesn't mean that I'm not open to other options, but right now that's what I would like to do. And hopefully, like, this is definitely like star in my eyes, like dreamer, but I want to change the game in academia. Like, I'm so tired of everybody being driven by my H index is this. I have this many publications. I'm like, snaps and claps to you. I'd actually like to make an impact rather than going into high impact fact journals. I might get in trouble for saying that, but
you're gonna be blacklisted.
Exactly. They're like, you're done. You don't get your doctorate now. Whatever. It's fine. They can't take it away from me.
But I think that's an interesting conversation, because as you and I have experienced in terms of like being undergraduates and now graduate students at a top tier research at university, I think the approach to the classroom is different, right? So it's very hard to find those individuals who are good in the classroom, but also prolific in the research areas.
Oh my gosh,
and so I think you're onto something there in terms of making an impact in both ways, because really you're hoping that you're going to have an impact through your research, but also hope you have an impact on the individuals who are sitting in your classroom and the information that you are putting out there to the minds of the future, right? So,
molding the youth.
Yeah, I mean, and
terrifying.
Yeah, well, maybe we should rethink this whole process.
Maybe you shouldn't be doing that, Sarah.
But it's I think, an interesting conversation, and I would agree. I think there's room for improvement in higher education.
A lot of room.
Yeah, and we're probably
run around in it.
Yeah, it's an interesting world to be on, especially I think, going through college, I had no concept of really like what all goes on, and then now being on this side of things, it's like, oh, that's why that happens, or oh, that makes sense now,
It's a completely different world. Like undergrad is, you kind of have your blinds on and you're kind of like living in a happy-go-lucky world, and then you go to grad school and you're like, oh. You're kind of open to more of the ins and outs of things, and maybe the not so pretty side sometimes, which is unfortunate, but it's okay.
But that's the world we've chosen to live our lives in.
It is, isn't it? So you can't, nobody can feel bad for me.
Right, I know. We chose this life.
Yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine.
Oh, man.
Great.
But, okay, and like, I know we kind of just, we routed on higher education a little bit there, but I do think it is.
It's good.
It is, yeah. I mean, we have to have it. It's a vital part of the industry and educating people. Sometimes good or bad.
I know. Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, at community colleges, I'll give them a shout out because they gave me my first career in academia. And so, I mean, those are important too. And so, yeah, it is.
And too, I mean, in the world of agriculture, right? You don't have to go to a 4-year university to have a successful career, or, being in an area that you enjoy. I mean, shoot, sometimes on the job experience is more impactful than these long tenures of colleges that we are experiencing. But but I think it's just important to know too that you have options, and research and graduate school is an option.
It is an option. It's a great option.
Great option. No, and I really have enjoyed my experience so far. Like for the most part, it's a struggle, but I would say, that's life.
Exactly. I'm like, you're not gonna find a single person that was like, grad school was a breeze. It was amazing. Best time of my life. Nobody's gonna say that. I mean, it's supposed to be hard. Yeah. It's upper level. So
exactly. Otherwise it's probably not worth doing if you could just breeze through it.
Exactly. So it's fine.
But for anybody who's listening,
we're not selling this well.
No, you're not. Who is maybe thinking about grad school or going into the world of academia, or wanting to know more about agriculture education at the level that we are at, what is something that you would share with them?
Ooh. Allie, that's really hard.
I know, I'm sorry.
Because I could write a dissertation about that.
Really, though? I mean, you could.
I think probably my biggest advice, or something that I would share, is you need to make sure that what you are choosing, or the degree that you're choosing, or route you're choosing, something is that you are very, very passionate about. Why I say that is because you're going to be in the thick of it, and you are going to be doing it over and over and over and over and over, especially like picking what you want to research. You're going to talk about that. Like, I've been talking about my research project for the past 2 years, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. And when I go and try to get hired, I'm going to continue to talk about my dissertation. And so if you pick something that you're just kind of like, because I mean, like, it has, like, I'm not tired of it yet because I'm so passionate about it. And that is what I want to do with my life, is just making sure that it's something that you truly like are gung-ho about. Because if you are just feeling kind of like, then you're not gonna, it's gonna be brutal trying to get through grad school, because I mean, what's your motivation? And B, like, you gotta be a self-motivator. And so
100%.
Having something that fuels you that much will get you.
Yeah. And you have to defend yourself. No, I mean, not just like not just your dissertation or thesis defense, but like you're going to have to defend why you think it's a good project or a good thing to study or why it's important to study. So yeah, pick something you're passionate about. Pick something that can forward your career or goal at the end of it. And that's not an easy process to come up with either. Like this past semester, I like literally multiple times like driving home crying, like, I don't know what to do. Like I have so many interests, so many different things that could impact one thing. And so just like trying to pick one project, because you're not going to solve the world's issues in one dissertation or one research project.
The biggest thing.
So trying to like creatively, but yet like conclusively come up with a thought or an idea to pursue as a research project is a lot harder than you would think. At least that was my experience.
No, absolutely. And making sure that it's like feasible. Because like you said, like you can't solve the world's problems. And like I came in and I had this amazing research idea, but it's something that would be like a 5-year grant. Like, Sarah, you ain't doing this in a year and a half, girly pop. Like, it's not happening. I mean, it's great, but so it's kind of like, you know, they always like to talk about that funnel it down. And I hate that they're right, but
I know
they're right.
They are right. And I would say too, I think something that's important, I mean, just in life in general, obviously, but especially in graduate school, is to like find a group of people that you can commiserate with.
Your tribe?
And also like a mentor if possible. If possible, being the key word.
Be in the department. Like I would tell you, my mentor is not. It's not my chair and it's not in my department. So finding someone that really can understand what you're going through. That's a big thing too. Like you said, it's just, I mean, I love, like, my boyfriend's great and all that, but like, he doesn't get grad school. 100%. Like, he gets it,
but he doesn't. That's exactly how my boyfriend is. That is exactly how Ty is. He's like,
thick of it. Exactly. They're like, you did your proposal. I'm like, no, this is a big deal, dude. He's like, cool. I'm like, I need you.
I know, right? I am right there with you.
Yeah.
In the world of this is hard to describe to people who are not involved. Really, even like I call my mom and I'm like, blah, 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 and she's like, okay, I don't know how to help you, but sounds good. And I'm like,
my mom is the same way.
Just fix something for me.
Sure. She's like, what do you need from me?
Please fix it.
Exactly. Can you just do it for me? Because I can't do it anymore.
Right? Oh man. Well, you are done with classes. Prelims are done. Proposal is done. You are in the research data collection stage. So
it's painful.
Stay strong, sister. Stay strong.
We're getting there.
You're getting there.
Struggle. I'm a little worried, but it's okay.
But you're getting there. It'll be fine, and it'll be so worth it when you're done.
I am like Ross from Friends on repeat. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. You just have to keep telling yourself that.
It's all going to be great.
It's going to be great. We're going to graduate.
Oh, right. Okay, well, not to cut our graduate school life lessons short here, but what is a way that somebody can get a hold of you, Sarah, if they are wanting to reach out to talk about anything that we've talked about today?
Yeah, they can email me at sprayberry12tamu.edu. They're more than happy to. They can also message me on Instagram, which is just Sarah Sprayberry, and then Blooming Advocate is my Instagram and TikTok. So if they want to message me there, they're more than welcome to.
Fantastic, ma'am. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see how everything finishes and the kind of what you find through your studies and just where you go in life and your career.
I know.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Ag Chicks. Don't forget to follow along on social media at Ag Chicks for more agricultural related content, and also be sure to check out your favorite podcast here from www.agchicks.net. We'll see you next time.